All right. Hey, we're live. Hey, hey Miss
All
Sue, how are
right.
you?
I'm doing well on this rainy Thursday, QFF now on Thursday episode that we're going to do. So
That's right.
we're getting ready, I guess, for some torrential rains for the next couple of days. So I guess we'll just hunker down, get ready for the rowboats, get your kayaks out.
That's right. Hey, if you're gonna do anything, if you're gonna
So,
do something, you might as well
yeah,
start with some
yeah,
good rain.
yeah.
It'll clean everything up for a little while.
There you go. Well, all joking aside, I hope there's no major damage, and hopefully it'll all peter out and go out to sea, and it won't be any damage. So it's always Mother Nature has a mind of its own. So
I saw something a little on Facebook, like maybe a couple hours ago, and it, according to, and I always forget the weatherman's name. In fact, I just saw him recently, but what's his name? Golly. Anyway, he if that was current and nothing's changed since that one, it said it was going to go out to sea. So
oh, good. Well, hopefully that'll be the
hopefully it'll
case.
just be some rain and stuff then maybe. But
Good,
yeah.
good. So you and I had the opportunity last week, I think it was, or the week before, to moderate an agent panel for the Coastal Carolinas Association of Realtors, where we had 4 or 5 agents,
One, two, three, four, five.
5 agents from all different areas of the beach and ranging in from brand new to 30, 25, 30 years in the business. I thought the webinar, I mean the panel was actually wonderful. I thought a lot of great information. What I got out of the whole thing after that 2 hour episode was that
Yeah.
it's nothing new.
Right.
Like, don't try to recreate the wheel and all these tools with technology. Just that, it's tools. But the one theme I came across, and I was just feedback from you, is what do we need to do?
Right.
Prospect. And that was the big key takeaway for me is any tips. And we're going to get into some of the things people actually discuss. But the big takeaway for anybody was you have to prospect. And
Yeah.
that's what you're going to have to do if you want to be in this business and make money doing real estate. There's no secret to it. There's no magic pill. There's no magic websites. It's prospecting. And all the other things are bells and whistles and things like that that you can add to your business. But if you're not willing to start from the bottom and start prospecting day one, you're not going to last in this business. So it was nice to hear from all those agents who have been in the business a long time and went through the downturn that we just went through back in 2007, 8, 9, 10, that they just all kept doing the same thing and they survived. They prospected
Yep.
and just kept plugging away. So
Yeah, to
what were
add,
your thoughts?
yeah, I mean I couldn't agree with you more. It's funny, I wrote notes during it and then after it I actually that evening I did find a lot of benefit from it. Nothing new per se, but a lot of benefit. And I think you're right on. I think the key, I would only add one little tweak to it, just the way my brain kind of thinks of stuff, but it was absolutely prospecting. The tweak to it was there was a little overlap with each of them on how they prospected. I think they all agreed on the referral part, and then they all had the kind of their own unique way. Like Greg Harrelson was a big player online, and that's where he generated most of his leads from. But
Mm-hmm.
then they all had a system
Mm-hmm.
and a way they prospected or a way they got new business, and they all had a regimen. It seemed to me like this is what I do, and this is what I do every single day, and this is
And
how
that
long how
and
long
that's
I
the
do it
key.
for.
You
Yeah,
have to do it. You have to make an appointment every day to prospect.
yeah,
And that's just a no-brainer. That's just part of the business, and it's so easy. I haven't been in real estate myself for a long time. I know. I used to, I don't prospect that much anymore, so I'm out of that end of the business right now. But when I was actively working in sales, I had an appointment with myself every day for 2 hours, and that 2 hours was prospecting. Always, I prospected from 9 to 11 or 10 to 12, but it was always in the morning because I wanted to get it out of the way, so to speak, and get my goal was always get an appointment. Once I got that appointment, I was done for the day. So they all talked about setting goals, and we're going to talk a lot about that too. But I used to set goals for daily goals. Like if I was prospecting, like I just said, My goal was I need to get an appointment for that day if I didn't already have one. That was my goal. Whether it be a listing prospect, because in real estate, if you're not out showing property or listing property, you're unemployed. So
Yeah.
that's basically it. So, so what else? What were your other takeaways?
You know, I found it fascinating that a variety of different things were still working. Not fascinating. I liked that, you know, each person had their thing that worked great for them, and they were all very successful listing agents, even you know, from the new agent all the way through to the people who've been in the game for a long time. You know, everything from Tiffany down to as a newer agent, and her husband and how they do stuff, all the way through to Greg with his online stuff, then to Tracy Miles and how she was doing stuff with, you know, not only her online stuff, but then, you know, she kind of kills them with kindness, as she says. And I just, and Dave, I love, because he's kind of using something that a lot of people say doesn't work anymore. And he's been using postcards for, it seems like, his entire career. So,
right. But what Dave has done is very, he branded himself back in the day before branding was actually out there.
Yeah.
And he came out with a theme on a postcard, and he just used that same postcard for years, and it still works. And people recognize him. So when you talk about branding, he's done it. You know, he absolutely has done it, and people know when they see a postcard with Dave, and I think it's a picture of him with a golf club just standing there. People just know that's Dave. That's the real estate guy. You know, so
yeah.
Whatever
he was kind enough to share it. That what was nice, he was kind enough to share the exact postcard that he uses, and he even shared who he uses to generate them and send them out with and stuff like that. Yeah.
Right. So what I thought I'd do is kind of recap, going over some of the questions that we asked the agents, and then if you have your own notes, we'll kind of talk about it. So we started with prospecting, and of course we talked about that, and they all felt that prospecting was the key to, they have to do it every day. So we're not even going to talk about that anymore. Just move on.
Sure.
The next thing we had asked them was about a business plan, whether they had one, etc. And yes, they all had a business plan. And
except for Dave. Dave said, he was very honest. He said, I don't have one.
Right. But he may not have had a plan written down, but he did know what to do every day.
He sure did.
To show up at the office and, you know, do what he needs to do. So
he did have, you know what I loved about his? He had that point system, and he said he came up with a way so that when he came home, because his kids started asking him, which I thought was awesome.
Right.
You know, and so he always made sure he never left the office where he couldn't come home and say, I got a point, because he created points for making a call or making a, you know, different, you know, setting up a presentation and different things like that. And I thought that was a great way to motivate yourself and keep yourself on task. And, you know, and he found a way that made it work for him. And I think no matter what version works for you, there were several versions shared. I kind of liked his because he customized something that worked with his personality.
Right. And let's face it, in any kind of sales, whether you're doing real estate sales or anything where you're working on your own, you know, you've got to come up with those things. What's going to motivate you to do it? Because if no one's holding you accountable, what's the point? So, you know,
and frankly, you know, unless you have a coach,
you
know, the person who's going to keep you accountable is probably you.
Right. So that's why real estate agents have a hard time prospecting. There's no accountability. You know, it's like who's going to yell at you if you don't do it every day? You're going to yell at yourself. So anyway, so anyhow, the business plan, yes, they looked at it. Some looked at it, you know, weekly. Some looked at it monthly. But they all agreed that they may create it now, but it always gets tweaked. It's not like, oh, we don't ever touch it again. So they all agree that they do look at it sporadically through the year and tweak it. And, you know, if you look at your sales at the end of, you know, say June, and you've, you know, either already reached your goal, well, you're going to increase your goal. You're not going to stop. Or if you haven't met your goal, you're going to look at it again and say, okay, what do I need to do to make my goals? So that's the accountability part. The next question we discussed was farming, and talking about these agents. And again, keeping in mind, these are new fairly new agents to very experienced agents. And the question was asked was, do they farm? And if so, what they did. And they all do some sort of farming, and they all recommend it. That especially the easiest thing to do is when you get a listing, either like Dave sends out a just listed card, or a number of the agents sent out just listed cards actually and just sold. So, those old ways of doing things are tried and true, and they still work. So it's a good way to get out there. And phone calls, I mean, to call just around the neighborhood too, and let the neighbors know, hey, it's Sue from ABC Realty. Just want to let you know we just listed a house. If you don't have anybody, we're going to hold it open on Sunday between 1 and 2, whatever. So that's prospecting. Yep. And so it's prospecting, farming, it's all the same thing. So I don't know if you had any notes about farming. What were your takeaways from that?
The two, in addition to what you said, the Greg talked about that they custom targeted on Facebook, and then Tiffany Herrera also mentioned that she used Facebook to target as well.
Right, and it's a great thing.
Yeah.
So we touched on goals about setting every year and check throughout the years. We talked about that. And then the question came up about what keeps you motivated, whether they had any rituals they do. And I think overall they all had the same theme, was you have to love what you do. If you don't love what you do, then get out, because you have to love selling real estate. Not even selling real estate. It's like what Dave said, I think, at one point. I don't know whether it was to this question or another one, is that he looks at himself not as a salesperson, but he looks to himself as being one who's a problem solver. So, yes, people need a house, and that's solving a problem. Where is it going to be? It has to have this, it has to have that. So I like that concept that he came up with that. The other things was, to keep yourself motivated, is that education. You're not going to learn the business overnight. You need to have a couple of years to be successful. Some of them recommend mentors, and surround yourself with the right people. Keep people around that are going to motivate you. So always be reading and watching. Now in this day of video, you can go to YouTube and look it up and watch any kind of a motivational video from anybody. So great tools out there in this world. What did you have about as far as motivation? Do you have any special notes?
I think you covered everything there, Sue. I think I would just be repeating it. So no, okay. You got it.
Okay. Though we also talked, going back to business planning, I had asked whether any of them used a coach. There was only one, and that was Greg. He does use a coach. Otherwise, everyone else just uses a written business plan that they develop themselves, maybe in conjunction with their broker in charge. But he was the only one that used a coach. I do recommend having, if you're having difficulty, if what you're doing now is working fine, but if you have a business plan, and even with your broker in charge, if you find that maybe you need another kind of a coach, I do recommend that. I think, an outside person, coach, somebody to hold you accountable, that would really help you and be money well spent. So I don't know how do you feel about coaching in any business, really, from a sales end?
For not all my business career, but for the majority of it, once somebody advised me of this quite a few years ago, I've always had a coach and or mentor that I establish my goals with on a regular basis, and then we review them about every 6 weeks. And for me, it's always been a useful tool. Now, doesn't it? Just so you know, I've done it in a paid way, and I've also done it in a free way.
Of course.
For me, that whoever that person is, the key is that it's somebody who commits to you just like you'll commit to them, to keep them accountable to what they're doing. And so you got to pick that person wisely. And it can be a friend. I've had friends I've done it with, and it's worked out great. But whoever you pick, you have to make that commitment with each other that you're going to keep those goals and not let each other slough off. It's kind of like if you're somebody who works out a lot and you have a gym partner, so that person is going to make sure you show up every day.
Yeah, exactly. I was just going to say, or if you're trying to lose weight, you have that partner saying, put that chocolate down. You don't need that.
Yeah, I need both those last two. Yeah.
But yeah. So anyway, so, if you have a business plan, if you're not looking at it and seriously looking at it and evaluating it, ask another person in your office to help you with it. Find a mentor, someone who's been in the business, that can really be beneficial to you. So,
yep, I agree.
Let's see, what else do we have on there? We talked about a lot of questions were asked of them about how do they maintain, a contact resource management tool, database, what do they do? And a number of them said they just keep everyone forever until they tell them not to send anything, but they still maintain some kind of contact, whether it be, again, sending an email. In today's technology, I guess it's the biggest format right now, but they keep it forever. Most of the CRMs they're using, they said they were using something they created on their own or company tools. A number of the agents are using Top Producer, which Top Producer has been around for a long time. It's a great product. And, a little bit, you got to take a little learning curve there to learn it, but it does do everything for you. I mean, you literally turn that program on. It'll tell you what letters need to be written, or, who you need to call. It'll do all the follow-up right there for you. So it's a great tool for those people wanting to look for a tool like that. Yeah. I mean, you can set up your own way of doing it just using, Google and stuff like that now. So I know Greg uses a product called Infusionsoft, but that really is for a more advanced person when you go to the next level, I would say. I don't know. Are you familiar with Infusionsoft at all?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I would say it's a little more technical and it requires a little bit more setting up.
It does more on the lead gen side, on the back end, on the analyticals, I think, where you can more do target marketing. So, the average realtor is not going to get that intricate. If you have someone that's handling that for you, maybe then you could do it. But I would say somebody, Infusionsoft is something later on, your next step after you've been doing this for maybe 5-6 years, looking at something like that at that point. But what's your thought?
I would go along with that. I think that they do similar things, and then Infusionsoft does more. It's probably the way I would summarize it, keeping it simple. And I put check marks next to what everybody said, and for everybody but Greg used Top Producer, and like you said, he used Infusionsoft, and Top Producer gets really good marks overall most of the time when I look them up on different reviews and when I talk to clients and stuff like that. It's a popular product, and for most of them it's going to do the lead capture, and then like you said, it's got all the reminders,
it's got all the letters. It's got all the built-in letters. I mean, you don't have to go out and recreate the wheel. So
right. Yeah, like I said, it's kind of built in. The whole system's kind of created for you, so you just have to kind of set it up and then make some tweaks to it to fit your personality and kind of your format and stuff. And
it's not a real expensive software program. I think it's less than $100 a month.
It is. In fact, I was just speaking with a new client who got Top Producer, and she got both Top Producer, the CRM side of it, the 5 Street component, and the what's the Market Snapshot, all 3 together, and was able to negotiate, I believe it was $80 per month for all 3. So
yeah, you can't beat that. So
I think that's a very economic, very, very good price for all those.
It is.
Yep.
Said I used Top Producer way back in the day, and I said they're still around, so that tells you something if they're still here.
yeah, absolutely. So, well, and I don't know if you saw it earlier today, just on a side note, Move, of course, which is a component of Realtor.com, just bought a company called Recio.
Recio,
something like that, and they're looking to incorporate that into the Top Producer product. I don't know how quickly that'll occur, but that's part of the, I guess, another component, because of course, as you know, Zillow bought .loop, and so they're trying to get that component
competition.
They're basically pushing each other to become better, because good for the realtors on this side, right?
Yep. So that's funny. Another topic that we discussed was assistants and whether or not they had assistants, and I think starting with Tiffany first, she works with her husband actually, so they don't have an assistant because they have each other right now.
Yeah.
But she definitely said she would definitely not have a problem hiring an assistant when they get to that point. There's a couple of them that have it. I think pretty much everyone else think has an assistant. Dave had his wife for 30 years. Greg has an assistant. Tracy had an assistant, and Chris, yeah, that's
Chris
right.
as
So
well.
they all did. They all had assistants. So for the agents, again, their main topic was they want to be out. They're the agent. They're the licensed person. They want to be out in the field generating more leads. And the best way to do that is not to be bogged down with all the paperwork. So that assistant takes care of all that paperwork, all that computer work, all that internet stuff. So they're out there working, just going on appointments. Smart. Yep. That's a smart business move. So I think that's where agents sometimes get bogged down, is they think they have to do it all. And in the beginning, yeah, you only have a couple of listings. It's probably not very cost effective for you to have an assistant at that point, but it's something you should definitely be working towards. I think Greg had mentioned at some point in the conversation that he felt that somewhere when you get to the point of where you have 30 to 35 deals, you definitely need to have an assistant. So that seemed to me to be about a right number around there. Definitely when you get to 40, if you've got 40 transactions and you don't have an assistant, you're burning out yourself more than anything. So definitely something to do.
Yeah, I remember Greg talking those numbers as well. And that makes sense. I mean, I don't have a sense of the time it takes to do all the steps, but if he said that, I know he kind of recommends if you get into that point where you're getting, you're going to get to that next hurdle. He kind of recommended you start when you're in the 25 to 30 mark, right, so that by the time you really need them, you've got them prepared and ready. I think he kind of warned subtly that, if you get to 40 and you're starting with somebody, it's going to be a little haywire there for a while. So,
well, again, and thinking, if agents are out there and they're starting to get busy, they have even if they're up to 10 or 15 deals, just think about the amount of paperwork that you've got to do for those transactions, just starting with the listing end of it, just for your company. What happens to that paper? What do you have to do with it? It'd be nice to just turn over the file to your assistant and say, here, you take care of it now. I'm going out to get another listing, which is really where you make money. You make money bringing in the listings. So it is something to definitely be working towards. I think smart move on that. And you can hire some virtual assistants out there now that, they'll do all that work for you virtually, and it works really good and cheap. And so it's something to think about in this new age of technology. So
I agree.
The next topic, which I found interesting, was listing presentations. And I had asked them the question of the 5 of them, whether they use paper or digital, and only one of them used digital. And you know who it was?
It was Tiffany. She's a rock star. I love Tiffany.
And everyone else said they're old school. They basically just go in there and do it's more like face-to-face, sit down, talk to the people. Comps is really not even a presentation. So I found that interesting myself, just because all the other statistics I've ever read talks about having that digital presentation, and that just debunks everything. So, it's like, who do you listen to? I said, well, looking at that panel of people, I'm like, well, if they're doing that without that, they must be okay. So
sure.
It's interesting. So I guess it's a matter of what you feel comfortable with and what the people are expecting. I think you have to know who you're presenting to as well, which is another thing. If you go all digital all the time and you're going to a couple who don't even have a computer and don't understand those things, then you have a problem. So you need to really know your audience before you go out there.
Yeah.
So that kind of, now you're out there in that mobile world. Did you find that interesting that they don't do a listing presentation, even like in a book form? They just kind of wing it?
I didn't get that they winged it. What I got was that they like Tiffany, of course, had a very organized version of
Right.
one. She used a Prezi presentation, which I loved. I thought it was really nicely set together and gave her an opportunity to keep organized and on topic. Tracy she had her binders there, and she shared
Right.
that she pulled those out. So she had a printed version. I think Chris talked about that he printed out all the
Comps. He
comps
takes out the
and
comps.
stuff
Yeah.
like that. And these guys have been doing it for so long, so they probably, combination of their ability to communicate and build relationships and have that
Right.
discussion, and then have the comps and the data there in that format for them is just probably just easy and works good.
Right.
So I mean, I think they're all, I think you got to use what you're comfortable with. And,
Right.
I don't think a consumer is going to be upset because you gave them paper. But I don't think they're going to be upset if you put a digital format in front of them either. It's
Right.
not like they have to know how to use the tool as long as you do, and you can hand it to them, whether
Right.
it's paper or whatever. They got to
Right.
know how to read
Right.
one way or
Right.
the other.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah.
And then the other
Yeah.
part of that listing presentation that we asked was whether they did a 1 or a 2-step, and pretty much everyone said, except for Tracy, that their goal is a 1-step, and Tracy does a callback, I think, right on the. She
Yeah.
doesn't go back, but she calls them with the pricing. So I thought that was a unique, actually, thing that she did.
Yeah, and that was actually, to me, was one of the cool little intricacies as to little subtleties everybody did. Like Tiffany would pre-send, because she had it in a digital format. She
Right.
pre-send everything, and she would deal with a lot of objections before she even got there. And when she got there, she even indicated there were several times she'd show up where the thing was already signed. As she got there, I mean, people kind of liked what they saw and they were ready to do business with her, all the way through to, I guess, the other end of the scale. Like you said, Tracy would come with everything. Like, she would never, ever put a price together for it until she walked the home, and then she would call back with that information. And everything in between. And again, I don't think there's an exact right answer to this. I just think you have to find what works best. And Tracy's dealing with a higher end client. And
Right.
I think Chris even alluded to this, where as the price goes up, the 1-step may not, I guess, for them anyway, didn't work as well. They needed that 2-step.
Right. When you get in that upper price range that she's working, normally houses are a little bit more unique, have a little bit more things in them that you may have to go back and look at. Well, pricing wise, this does this, and this versus whatever. So, yeah. And these people have been working their markets for a long time, so they know their marketplace. And for a new agent coming in, they're not going to have that experience. So they should make sure they have the backup data and things like that, showing a little bit of knowledge, going in there. So that's probably a big part of that as well.
Yeah, I agree.
Continuing ad, they all said they do the basic for continuing ad, and that they do will watch webinars. They attend as much company training, anything at Coastal Carolina Association they do as well. And pretty much they do try to take as much as they can.
Yep.
So that was good to know. And then we talked about offline marketing, and of course, no surprises there. Nobody does really any newspaper ads. Most of their offline marketing they're doing is postcards, prospecting, farming, calls, signs and stuff like that.
Yep.
So, and the online marketing, of course, is personal websites, blogging, Facebook ads. That was a biggie. They talked about Facebook ads. So that's where it is. It's out there, online marketing. And I guess one of the last two things we talked about was we asked what their number one objections were at a listing presentation. And number of them said pricing. They felt that was their biggest obstacle they always had to overcome, was the price, of course. The other was they want to think about it. And then Tracy talked about the emotional attachment to a home, that overcoming that and getting people to detach. So I thought that was very true. And sometimes I think that's overlooked when people are going out there and listing presentations. They're not realizing that that's actually what the issue is. It's the emotional attachment to the house. So I thought all that was really good information for everybody I really felt that they really shared well and opened up about themselves, which I was very happy about. Um, Advice to agents coming in, whether they were new or coming back to the market, overwhelmingly, they all felt education was the number one, that to educate themselves as much as they could, know the product, and of course, master the habit of lead generation. That was the big thing. I don't know whether you had any other notes about that, but I think those are the highlights that I took away from that.
Yeah, on the just taking a step back on the one just before that, where they said that pricing was the objection. What the thing I pulled from that, and I got part of it from Tracy and part of it from Greg, they all hinted to it. For sure, was taking the emotion out of the sale. And one of the ways that I thought made it clear, it was, and I don't remember who said this part, but they said put the seller in the buyer's seat and have them perceive their property from the buyer's perspective versus their own. Because, you know, like they all said in their own funny way, you know, every buyer thinks their house is the nicest one in the entire block, and that's why it should be, you know, this high or whatever. But I thought that was super good advice. And, you know, Greg said very early on in the presentation, you know, buyers buy on emotion and sellers sell with logic. And I think that is the key. You know, when you're doing a seller's presentation, they're not, the bottom line for them is the price and what it's going to sell for. And you've got to get it, you got to do it logically, not with emotion. They don't engage as well on the emotional side when you're doing the listing side of this equation. So I thought that was, all of them hit it in their own way, but I thought that was wise advice. So
excellent. Yep, it was. So overall, I think the agent panel went really well. We had a packed house, which was good. And I thought we'd recap tonight because of just so much valuable information. And sometimes when you're sitting there, you're trying to catch all the notes. And we did not record the session, so that's why I thought it was well worth recapping it. So now we have a recorded version of it. We can share it with the rest who either attended and want to hear it again. Final thoughts about the agent panel. Anything else? What did you think?
I thought it was a really great use of time. I remember we sat in on something similar about a year ago, and this one I thought was much better. I thought you did a fantastic job moderating it and getting the questions answered and asked. And I was really happy that most of them shared, I thought, very openly and stuff like that. And the one thing, because you were smart enough to do it, when we did do the actual Q&A at the end, I was recording that on your iPad, and you just sent that to me before we got on this call today. So I'm going to, hopefully, once I get them, I'll be able to download, and we'll put them up on the website in the same folder or the same file page that we're putting this information on. So you'll be able to listen to the question Sue asked and the exact answer right from the people in the on the panel. So
on the panel, right.
I think they'll enjoy that too. So I think that's going to be really helpful for everybody. Yeah.
Very good. Well, we are at 8:32, so we're right there.
time to be quiet.
But all's good. I think next week, I think we're going to get back to our, we've been prior to this talking about marketing. So I think we were due to talk about YouTube, and I think that's what we're going to talk about. So next QFF on Thursday. I actually was thinking we should have Tech Talk Thursday or something like that. So think about that.
Yeah. Well, maybe we can poll some people and get their opinion too. I like that. Tech Talk Thursday, or
or talking tech or something like that.
Yeah.
Think about it. So
sounds good.
Anyway, that's it for me. Thank you, Pierre, as always, for being my partner in crime.
My pleasure. I love doing it with you.
I really liked having you on the panel as well, and helping out with all the computer stuff, and helping Tiffany with her presentation, and with Dave, so that helped out a lot. And as always, look forward to seeing you at the next QFF on Thursday. Now on Thursday.
Now on Thursdays. That's right. Well, thank you, Miss Sue. Everyone, thanks for joining us as always, and we will see you next Thursday, 8:00 p.m. Eastern Time. So we'll see you all then. Thanks, Miss Sue.
Bye.
Bye.